What's happening, guys? Welcome into another boxing breakdown and prediction show for this weekend's featherweight clash over in the UK between IBF champion Kiko Martinez as he looks to defend his belt against former champion Josh Warrington this weekend, live over on DAZN. So let's get into it now. Warrington comes into this one as the minus 400 favourite, big odds there, with Martinez coming back at a plus 275. And this will be the second meeting between these two after both men fought back in 2017 in the very same venue as well. And, since then, both men have took, you'd say wildly different roads in order to get back to this point, in their respective careers. Warrington put together a fantastic run after that first fight in 2017 against Martinez. He won outright both times as an underdog, I believe, against Lee Selby and Carl Frampton, respectively. Followed up with a very controversial decision win, it must be said, against former champion Kid Galahad as well in 2019. But Warrington, with that energetic style of his, with the support he brings to the sport as well in his hometown of Leeds, looked to be on course to be a fairly dominant champion at featherweight, at least for the foreseeable future. But, what an absolute buzzsaw he ran into last year in preparation for his, Kanzu unification fight in London. He fought a stay busy fight against a young, pretty much unheralded Mexican fighter by the name of Mauricio Lara. It was only Lara's second time fighting outside of his native Mexico. He'd only fought once in Argentina, and Lara absolutely smashed Warrington to bits in that fight. Warrington wasn't ready for that type of power at all. He got systematically broken down in that fight by Lara. So, obviously that put his career on hold for some time. But, full credit to Warrington initially, at least. He didn't try and pull, a fast one. He didn't try and pull Namir Khan against Breeders Prescott type of move where he dodged the fight completely. He said he wanted to put things right from the first loss. And, Lara and Warrington were rematching a huge bout in September of last year. Now, I had a 5% play on that fight. To me, at least, Lara broke him down so completely, so systematically in that first fight. I personally just didn't see any way Warrington could change the narrative in that one. He isn't a good enough boxer to keep Lara off him for 12 rounds, and, definitely couldn't attempt to meet Lara, head on in the middle of the ring in some kind of firefight either. So, I firmly expected another KO victory for Lara in that second fight. He was going in as a slight underdog as well. And, to be honest, that's how the rematch looked to be playing out. Warrington started fast. First round started ripping off combinations to the head and body, but Lara didn't look seriously bothered by Warrington's power at all. He started shrugging off, Warrington's attempt at pushing him back. And you could see, Warrington physically start to deflate at the end of the first round, started moving backwards as Lara started to connect with some heavy shots of his own and, put Warrington firmly into retreat mode to start the second round. Unfortunately, for the 5%, it was a push. It ended up a push because the fight was stopped in between rounds 2 and 3 in the corner as Lara was, it looked to me like Lara was starting to take complete command of the fight, but he suffered a cut above his eye from a clash of heads. But, was it worse than Fury's cut against Vallon a couple of years ago? I wouldn't say so. Was it worse than Conlon's cut against Wood 2 weeks ago as well? Probably not. So, look, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad cut by any means, but, once that decision to stop the fight was made, you could sense the relief from Warrington's corner. They don't want any more Mexican smoke from Lara, and Eddie Hearn will be doing everything in his power to keep Lara firmly across that side of the pond from now on. And obviously, that's not trying to diminish Warrington's accomplishment in any way. He is a good fighter, real handful for anyone at 126. But just believe Lara was a terrible style for Warrington in that one. But again, in this week against Kiko Martinez, a fighter he's already beaten. I do expect him to find a lot more success as he looks to reclaim that title. Kiko Martinez, the champion coming into this fight, comes in off the back of what was probably the biggest upset, at least to me, in all of last year. Don't think anyone saw Kid Galahad losing that fight in the fashion that he did. So dramatic. Martinez, arguably a fighter on the downside of his career, lost twice to Frampton, got annihilated by Scott Quigg. Gary Russell Jr. pretty much schooled him as well. So, really didn't think he had it in him at that stage of his career to come over to the UK and beat such a slick fighter like Kid Galahad. But, they always say the last thing to go is the power. Martinez certainly proved that, connected with two monstrous right hands either side of the sixth round to close the show, and finds himself now at the surprising age of 36 as a champion once again at this weight. In terms of how I see this fight playing out, I think those two fights against Mauricio Lara will actually be very beneficial for Warrington in the future, moving forward in his career. In the first fight between these two back in 2017, Warrington was far too content to just sit and trade shots from Martinez in the pocket, duke it out in the middle of the ring, made an entertaining contest from a fan point of view. But I believe his recent experiences against Lara, coupled with the destruction we saw against Kid Galahad last year by Martinez, will no doubt wake Warrington up to the danger of employing that style once again ahead of this one. Both guys are pressure fighters. Both love to walk down opponents and impose their style of fight. And that's what made the first fight between these two so entertaining, as we said. But, Warrington was a lot more careless back then. But I think that destruction at the hands of Lara last time out has shaped him now in terms of being, curving his aggressive tendencies in there, especially against heavier-handed fighters as well, which Martinez certainly is. And we've seen in that second fight against Lara the changes that Warrington had made in between that first fight. I personally didn't think it'd make much of a difference. But, he was a lot more cautious in there, Warrington, a lot more cautious in the exchanges to open the first round. He was fighting much lower as well than usual. Did a really good job of trying to hide his body in that one and keeping his chin tucked as well. Andy Lee observed that early on in that fight. So I think that new focus on cautiousness here, that new focus on defense should serve him well in this rematch against Kiko Martinez. So I just haven't seen that same improvement from Martinez over the last few years. We know his game plan at this stage. High pressure, high output, looks to constantly walk forward, throw heavy hands. But he is very susceptible to getting walked onto shots, from fighters at the higher end of the bracket in this division. So, if Warrington can utilise the improvements he's made on defence this weekend, doesn't look to stand square in front of Martinez, doesn't look to trade heavy shots with him either, looks to keep him turning, make him, continually resetting there. I think Warrington's the better fighter of these two. And I would expect him to get his hand raised in front of his home crowd of Leeds this weekend as a result. Martinez is tough. I don't see Warrington getting the stoppage in this one. He may still be a little bit gun-shy coming off those two Lara fights as well. But, at home, especially in Leeds, it's very difficult to see the judges giving Kiko much love on any tight rounds that take place in there. So I believe the best value in this fight is Warrington to win this one on points at -138 on Saturday. So we're going to take Josh Warrington to win via technical decision this weekend against Kiko Martinez on Saturday at -138. And that'll be our boxing play for Saturday. That'll wrap things up for this episode. As always, leave us your thoughts in the comments section below. And you can also catch me over on Twitter at the SportsWolf83 and at my handicapper page, Kevin Dolan, over at WagerTalk. As always, thanks for listening. Until next time, Slán